So, my good people, I have another video for you guys, and let's jump right into it. So, as you can see on the thumbnail, you see Eric Bischoff, you see Hulk Hogan, and you see Jim Cornette. Now, the reason I didn't put Paul Heyman on there is because he's already employed with the WWE. Okay. And so he's going to be in this conversation as well, though. But let's just start with these three. So basically, the conversation that we had live last night on TikTok, what we were talking about was the possibility of Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff making a wrestling company that could rival, AEW. This is what, the topic that, in the direction that a couple of people wanted to take it to. And I said, well, why not just say that could rival AEW or WWE, the two big, top two brands. I said, because when you say, even if you say AEW alone, they can't compete with them either. They might not even be able to compete with TNA. Now, here's why. And here's some simple things that people overlook when it comes to the wrestling business. First of all, let's look at your weekly calendar. You have Monday Nitro. Tuesday, you have NXT. Wednesday, you have Dynamite. Thursday, you have TNA Impact. Friday, you have SmackDown. Saturday, you have Collision. Well, most pay-per-views are always, usually, for wrestling anyway, on a Sunday. I know sometimes TNA will have them on the weird days because I'll catch highlights, and then all of a sudden I'll see a video that says highlights of, Under Siege. Like, when the hell did this happen? So, okay, it'll just be like Saturday afternoon. Like, I know they didn't do this first thing in the morning. So, where would you fit another show in? Now, we're not talking about another little small independent show. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a premium show that's going to be live, have a TV deal, have some major players, and be able to fill out big buildings, okay, stadiums and big arenas and all of that. That's what we're talking about. Okay, now, for one, the schedule for the week is booked. Two, does this show start out with a TV deal? Three, there's already so many brands and companies out there, and I can tell you, living off of what you've done in the past isn't enough going forward. Now, Eric Bischoff has a lot of knowledge of the business. So does Jim Cornette. Hogan has knowledge of the business. Now, Paul Heyman has knowledge of the business. But let's deal with this first. First of all, one thing that Paul Heyman included that they all have in common is that none of them have a first place mentality. Now, when Eric Bischoff had that first place mentality and the NWO was created, and with everybody, because it was, one thing that people always think that is just one person that just come up with every idea and every name of a type of match or whatever. It's and you come to find out through time that there was this person said this to that person, and this person came up with this, and that person said that, and then they end up coming up with something based on people putting their heads together. It's not just one person. All right, so with all that being said, when Eric Bischoff was on top of his game and he did the NWO thing, we saw him at his best at that point. Jim Cornette has done nothing to rival that. The best thing that Jim Cornette has ever had going for him was the Midnight Express. Now, Hogan doesn't from what I see of him, he doesn't know enough to run things the way Bischoff or Cornette could do. His star power, and then him with ideas with Bischoff and this person and people combining whatever, and then using his popularity to spearhead it all. That's what I saw him doing. But he makes everything about himself. The other thing that I can't see, if we even throw Paul Heyman in the mix, right? Let's just say if we had all four of them, and all four of them said, hey man, we're going to start a company and our own promotion, and this is what I think. And every one of them, I can see the egos clashing. I can see them not getting along. And I can see every one of them wanting to be seen as the most important piece to that puzzle. I can see them not getting along and it not working. 2, your audience don't want to hear you speaking like you have a second or third place mentality. Which means when you start comparing, this is why, if you think about it, the reason that they keep trying to talk trash about Tony Khan is because Tony Khan won't back down. And he has that mentality of, I'm here to do what I do. And I know that our company is the best promotion out there, what we do. And where people like Bischoff would even say something like, you know, he shouldn't talk like that because then it makes people compare, which is completely stupid. People are going to compare regardless just because it's all the same genre. And on top of that, you have the only other multi-billionaire that's running a company. And that's actual competition. So they're going to compare regardless. So why would he speak that way as if Tony should have a, hey, we're number 2, we'll take it. That's how he's speaking. Was he speaking like that when he was in charge and he was running things? But that's always his excuse as to why WCW failed. I didn't own the company, you know. I had a certain had a particular position where I did certain things, but I ultimately was, you know, I had a lot on the plate, but I didn't own the company. You know, I could make all the decisions or the really big decisions, but, you know, I did what you saw on TV and this and that. And if you listen to him, man, he has a lot of complaints, a lot of, like, even him saying things like he didn't want to work with Lex, and he didn't think much of Lex, and just like he basically played the dictator role. I guess he felt like, hey, I got some people, I got room to lose some people. He didn't want Lex to come back to the company. Now, if you're going to sit here and take credit for things that go well, but then the things that didn't go well, you know, turn around the company, not me. That's a cheesy bullshit way of just not accepting accountability that, hey, man, you know what? You didn't always have the best ideas. And see, just because you have knowledge of the game doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily just make the best decisions. But you think because of a person's experience that, oh, well, they know what to do. See, he knows what to do. Well, what went wrong? What went wrong? Right? So all of these different things that I keep hearing people say, when I hear him speak, this is what I say, for someone to be a part of a genre, like, why are you so critical about one particular company? And my thing is, I looked at his work that he's doing currently in MLW, and you know, basically when I see him, I just see an old man, an old gray-haired old man that once, you know, has some solid ideas, that he's not that guy anymore. But in his mind, he feels it necessary to take cheap shots at Tony Khan and AEW at every chance that he gets. So what do you have to offer to MLW? Like, if you criticize Ring of Honor and say Tony should be doing this and that, well, what are you doing? What advice do you have? What kind of, like, what are you doing in MLW that's going to take them to that next level? Jim Cornette is another one. Jim Cornette, you know, he's a guy that he's always the same, very critical. AEW this, AEW that, oh, they should have been this, they should have been, right? Again, what is it that you guys bring to the table with all of your knowledge that you could run a company right now? And here's the thing. The money that you need, the talent that you need, okay? The type of characters that you would need to be able to get the attention of the people. I don't think if you put all four of them together, and if they had the financial backing, I still don't think the four of them could run a company and be able to have it pushed to where this company is going to have the same type of success as AEW or WWE. I just don't think they could do it. And what they would probably try to do was either come on the Thursday night where the only competition they have is TNA, who's on Access TV. So now, if they tried to do it on a Wednesday night where they fake, well, we're going to go up against AEW, first of all, you'd have a lot of wrestlers that people don't even know. Because if you look at the talent pool right now of who's who, you'd have a lot of fresh faces. They'd probably, find some, just because you've been wrestling for a long time, they make you a damn legend, but probably try to find some faces that, fans might be familiar with. Somebody like a Tyrus or an EC3, somebody that, okay, yeah, they have some type of familiarity with the crowd or whatever, but, whoever might just be sitting on the sides right now doing much of nothing. But in terms of who's going to lead your company, I don't see any of them having the belief that they could do it. I don't see any of them having enough creativity, anything different. All of these guys, if you watch Jim Cornette, I don't know what he's a part of other than him just having a show, or radio, a podcast, a YouTube show, whatever. Like I said, I'm watching Cornette in MLW, and it's like, this isn't the same Eric Bischoff. Okay, it's not the same Eric Bischoff, and like I said, and I don't see him doing anything without Hulk Hogan. And one thing, Hulk Hogan has buried so many people and made so many bad relationships and got a bad reputation. He's a racist piece of shit. So people don't want to get behind that. And so when Eric Bischoff says that he's done with WWE type of storytelling, he's talking about, now him and Hogan with this freestyle wrestling shit. Like I said, anything Hogan touches, I'm not supporting it. Okay, but for Eric Bischoff, for him to even say that, yet you're employed by MLW, well, are you the one writing the scripts at MLW? Like, this is what I'm saying. I don't know what his position is. All I know is he comes out here and there and get in the ring and talk about a bunch of nothing. I have yet to see the fans engaged to where they're just jumping up and going crazy and they just love MLW. I mean, it's a very mild, very lukewarm crowd. But let Eric Bischoff tell it in ring that ever since he showed up, MLW has become must-see. Really? Where? By who? Who's talking about it? And these type of things is like where people look at the amount of experience. This is what I'm saying, the camouflage. Oh, but they have a lot of experience and they not right. And how many times have they worked for another company and then got fired? So how valuable is their knowledge to whatever company they work for? And my thing was, a long time ago, when Eric Bischoff wasn't in WWE, when Paul Heyman wasn't there in WWE, when Jim Cornette was not there, I said even then, why the three of them never thought to get together? Why is always animosity? You see what I'm saying? So my point even in that is, with their type of mindset and how they think, those guys are all outdated, man. And whatever Paul Heyman see, and like him, as far as him being a talent, like a talent scout or whatever he does, I don't know what it is that he brings to the table with the WWE overall. Because aside from like the whole general manager shit that WWE was so big on, if you notice, like Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce don't have the same type of involvement as the McMahons did, or Teddy Long. They don't really have that. And there's nothing entertaining about Adam Pearce. There's nothing entertaining about Nick Aldis. They just basically come out, you know, they always sound like they're annoyed with the wrestlers, so they'll book a match, or they don't want to book the match, and they'll book it for later, or it's always like it's like you don't know what the audience want, right? You don't know how to put a card together that the fans are gonna really like. It's always like example, if Rhea Ripley wants to fight Bianca, well, who doesn't want to see Bianca versus Rhea? I'm pretty sure there's somebody that'll go, I don't care about that match, but for the most part, the majority of fans would. So why would you treat it like, I'm getting sick of the two of you, and you guys are, every time I turn around, you guys are chasing each other down, and this is two of the biggest stars of your company. So you should know, I like that match. You understand the psychology of it all? They're played out, man. So their presence is nothing. So this is what I'm saying. Behind the closed doors, behind the scenes, whatever they do, okay, fine. If you look at what's going on right now versus what was just going on a year ago, okay, there's no drastic change. It was just better build-up due to The Rock's involvement in the WWE. But if you look at what's happening in the WWE, there's no real drastic change. To me, because I wasn't really sitting here going, I'm blown away by this card, and it really wasn't that type of situation for me. But even with what you guys see as being better, they still were getting a 3-point something rating. Couldn't get a 4.0. They were below that. Do you understand what I'm saying? So they've been able to maintain a certain spot to now they dropped down and they're doing a 2.7 for like 2 or 3 straight weeks now. So they're not able to sustain what they started with the debut of Netflix. Now just imagine, with all of the star power, all of the people that they have, and the WWE being who they are as a brand, and just imagine Eric Bischoff, Hulk Hogan, who is all about himself, and pretty much, I feel like he's stale. I feel like they're all set in their ways, and that they're all just past their primes with even the way how they see the business, because they always bring up old things and what you got to do and how you got to do it. And this is what I wait to see Eric Bischoff do when I see him on MLW programming. And I just don't see him do in MLW the things that he always talk about, that wrestling is missing and what they should do and how they shouldn't do this and that. And so what I'm saying is, if you bring so much value to the game, you should have more control then. And if the company you work for is still, mostly an internet show, then what's the problem there? What is the problem with the people that run the company? Why you never even mention these guys? And the same thing, like I told you in the video about Cowboy James Storm, saying the same things about how that I told you about Hulk Hogan. I saw this guy doing interviews and he's not even talking about TNA. He's talking about the WWE and Mr. T and all this other bullshit. So my whole thing with that is, for you, Eric Bischoff, to be a fucking guy that is so adamant about speaking against Tony Khan and AEW, why is it you do interviews and you don't even talk about MLW and you work for them? That is like, are you shitting me? Because the entire time that he was working for them, and I'm looking and when he would do a show, he'd do an interview, or he'd do his 83 weeks, there's no talking about MLW at all. None. So I feel like these guys are about just collecting a paycheck. Don't let names fool you, man, because it's the same thing. Like, it's like when the Lakers had Kobe. They had Shaq, Karl Malone, Gary Payton. They had Fisher. They had, all these different people. And that year, Detroit kicked their ass. And it was like people were saying, the Lakers got this. Spurs choked, the Lakers went forward, and people was already celebrating the Lakers win, that they were going to win. And Detroit said nope, and they didn't have a star-studded lineup, and they crushed the Lakers. So, just having names together doesn't mean everything's going to work cohesively, and I feel like that would be the downfall, because what people are saying is, back in the days when you had the NWA, when you had WWF at the time, AWA, those are like the big three. Now WCCW was still around, Smoky Mountain, UWF, those companies are there, but AWA, NWA, and WWF were the three biggest up here. And right now, if you had to look for a third big company, there is no third big company. I mean, TNA would be that company that we're talking about, but TNA, man, just the position that they're in, like they have a Hall of Fame. Whoever talks about TNA's Hall of Fame, does anybody even care if they have a Hall of Fame? Maybe the individuals that they induct might care. Maybe it might mean something to them. Maybe, but overall, nobody talks about it. And so, like, people talk about the Mount Rushmore of TNA, for example, and they'll say it's AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, and some would say Frankie Kazarian, but then my point is, regardless of who the TNA Mount Rushmore is, which I really don't even care about all that stupid shit, but the world, with the exception of Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, will look at that Mount Rushmore like they're mid-card people. You understand what I'm saying? They don't even look at them like world-class wrestlers. And even AJ and Samoa Joe, if you did a top 50 greatest wrestlers of all time, AJ and Samoa Joe wouldn't be high on that list for most of the majority of the people. And my thing with all of this Mount Rushmore and people wanting to talk about a company, the success of a company financially, and how many seats they fill up in the arenas, and all, like, when you start looking at all of those things and you start to make comparisons, these companies are going to always fail. Now, when you look at what AEW was able to do in a short period of time, and then, their numbers started to decline in ratings and in their viewership, and with less people coming out to their shows. This is what's going to happen. Like I said, the WWE went through it, which is another reason why when I look at, like there's nothing that I see Eric Bischoff, Hogan, Paul Heyman, or and Jim Cornette coming up with that's just going to blow everybody out the water, man. I don't see them doing things that's going to work. I think that their way of how they see professional wrestling, like we all, like, don't get me wrong, I know there's a time where wrestling was more fun overall as a genre, and it was more to talk about in a more positive way, because now everything is about pick and choose, pick a side, seek and destroy, only one company can survive bullshit. But it's like, example, I can listen to an artist sing, rap, whatever, and I can say, I love what you're talking about in this song. It sounds good, but it sounds good if it came out 15 years ago. It sounds outdated. Now, if you take those same words, okay, and put it together different, you need to approach the song different so it sounds more updated, but that potency is still there. Now, you got to figure out how you're going to do that, you see. But if I sit here and say, yeah, man, that's the one right there, and everybody else listen to you and go, man, this dude sounds old school. It sounds outdated. But if I know this ahead of time, right, shouldn't I tell you that? So this is what I'm saying. But if my ears is going, see, that's what I like, but I'm not understanding myself that, that may be what I like. And that would have worked 15 years ago, not now. The sound is different. The styles is different. What audience are you trying to target? Because you might have other people that say, yeah, I like that, but those are the ones that's not even going to buy your album. They're just going to, probably listen to it on YouTube or some shit like that or whatever. And, it's all a different setup now with streaming and everything. Nobody's selling CDs and records no more, cassettes or whatever. That's the thing of the past, right? But what I'm saying, the way the business is run now, and like your ears for music, well, it's the same thing. It's very similar because you can take for example, you can take a team like the Outrunners, right? Excuse me. And people love the Outrunners. But the thing is, their gimmick is done that way purposely. It's not like, oh, they just, came up with this idea accidentally, like, oh, well, they just outdated it. No, that's their gimmick. Now, FTR reminds you of the throwback teams. They kind of remind you of like the Horsemen and stuff like that. They do have that throwback, like the type of team that they are, and they're like, the way they approach their matches and things like that. So my thing, like, and you look at the talent pool out there. There's not good wrestlers out there, but I feel like for those 4 guys, right? People would think, yeah, they were like, because this is what they were talking about. Yeah, I think those guys, because I said, I put the 4 together because initially they talked about if Eric Bischoff and Jim Cornette put their differences aside. But I said, well, you got to throw Hogan in there with Bischoff because he's not doing anything with Bischoff. I said, you know what? One of the other great minds that they always talk about is Paul Heyman. Now you throw the 4 of them in there. And then we talked about, I'll let everybody else talk. I like to go last so I can listen to what everybody's saying, consider everything. But the reality, if what you're saying doesn't change, and we would only know if it actually happened for sure, but I strongly feel like it wouldn't work. Simply because they wouldn't work well together, just like wrestlers don't work well together. You think a wrestler would look at his or her roster and say, man, we have a stacked roster. Man, I could see me and this guy having great matches, her and her having great matches. That's right. No, everybody want to be that person. So you have people that would rather you leave than to share the spotlight with you. And I see the 4 of them being egomaniacs for real, not knowing how to coexist. And what could be a great thing end up being, damn, what if they would have did this? What if they would have did that? Then people making the rise and fall of whatever company they would have came up with. I don't feel like there's no other, and let me say this. It's financially. If you have the backing financially, right, nobody's just going to give you the money. So let me just say that because I don't want to just skip to or if somebody did. No. First of all, you have to have star power. Now, if the star power is those 4, they're not wrestling. So that's a red flag. Then you look at who's out there. Who are they going to get that's going to exclusively wrestle for them? With the exception of maybe they might, do some independent shows or whatever. That helps get our name out there too. But who are they going to get? And this is what I'm saying. If you look at like Maple Leaf Pro, the majority of the wrestlers at Maple Leaf Pro, you have some of them TNA, AEW, NWA, right? These people are coming from, so they're doing the independence though as well. And like when I say, I really don't know who's who is, like what wrestlers are like contracted to Maple Leaf Pro long term. I don't know. So what I'm saying, when do I see Maple Leaf Pro? On YouTube only. I don't see anything as far as a TV network or whatever, or a streaming deal. Now, let's just say, for example, in this era of time, they landed a streaming deal. Well, it probably wouldn't be on Netflix, being that Netflix already has the WWE. Probably wouldn't be on Max, being that they already have AEW. So you got to look and say, well, what? I think they would need more. Now, Tubi is free and all of that, whatever. They might have certain paid subscriptions. I don't know. I just watched that, whatever. But you take like Hulu or whatever else they may have out there. I don't think that Disney Plus would be interested in wrestling. And again, Hogan is a shit stain on this earth. And he's done too much to where people don't want to support what this motherfucking guy does. So you'd have to keep his ass off TV. Do you think that they're going to do that to Hogan? Do you think Eric Bischoff, Eric Bischoff would probably suggest it? He would probably suggest that, hey, you know, the reputation and how people are feeling, man, you know, things of that nature. But do you think Hogan's ego, he's going to listen to that shit? And that's the whole point, man. It's like having them all to work cohesively and run a show. I just don't see it happen. I see. And then you're going to start off with one show. Okay? One. And are you going to go the sports entertainment route, or are you going to do the professional wrestling route? Look at who's involved. You see what I'm saying? It's all about chemistry, man. And I don't see any one of them wanting to take a back seat to the other. All of them are going to want to be treated like equal partners and have the same type of power, the same type of, you know, play calling, so to speak. And so who's going to be the one making the major decisions? It should be the four of them, right? But do you see that actually happen? Do you think that they could actually make that happen? I don't think it would work. I don't think it would work. So when you talk about the three majors in America in pro wrestling, like I said, you talk about AEW, WWE, and TNA. But there's really no third major. There's only two majors. That's the point what I'm saying. So to have a third powerhouse of a company, well, you'd probably see a decline in TNA. And the fact that they're attached to the WWE as of now, it's like they're on life support. Because they are in the position of nobody really cares about what they're doing without the involvement of NXT. So the fact of the matter is, and let's look at this, Jim Cornette was employed by TNA at one point. That didn't work out. I remember him saying, my job is to get you jumping up and screaming and going crazy and jumping out your seats, and that didn't happen because of Jim Cornette. That didn't work. He's had several stints in WWE. That didn't work. NWA didn't work. Okay? Hogan and Bischoff, same thing. Buried and talked down on TNA and then started working for them. That shit fell apart. Okay? And my whole thing with all of it, like, look at Hogan's old age and his beat up body, and this fucking guy was talking about having one last match with John Cena, one last match with Stone Cold. Like, bro, sit your old broken up raggedy ass down. You're done. Eric Bischoff, I remember him at one point saying he was asked on an interview, would he go back and work for WWE, because this was after they brought Paul Heyman back. And he said he's not sure. He says, because I don't know if I have anything to offer that would help things. Now, he felt like that then, and that was like well over a decade ago. We're talking close to we're talking like maybe 2 decades now. That was a while ago. But bottom line, if he felt like that then, you think that now, because he's gotten older somehow, he just have a wealth of knowledge that just all of a sudden no. Watch him in MLW and you see exactly what I'm saying. He has no presence. It's like when you see Paul Heyman, and I'm telling you, Paul Heyman can't get involved in matches anymore. And like, Paul Heyman is too fat and slow. He can't even fucking fall down and roll. He's just, you know, like that shit with Roman Reigns when you guys wanted to, oh my God, to have your holy shit moment. It's like I saw him about to do the low blow. The way he positioned himself, he didn't act it out well. He didn't hide it well. And Roman's, oh yeah, and it's like, yeah. And he's turning his back to Paul. I mean, the typical way of doing it. They couldn't camouflage it. So physically, like I said, these guys are older. They're not the same, and their physical presence on camera does nothing. Paul Heyman is just a little fat, short, balding guy. Eric Bischoff, fucking snow white hair and shit. Hogan can dye his shit all he wants, but he's all fucking physically broken up. He's a racist piece of shit anyway, and nobody really gives a fuck about Hogan other than other racist people. And then Jim Cornette, again, another guy that's out of touch. And this is why when I hear them speak about how the wrestling business should be, I say, well, how could you say all that and then praise what the WWE is doing? It's always you never know, they might call us to come work for them one day. He knows, like, Tony Khan's not going to hire fucking Jim Cornette or any of them for what? For what? And remember, Tony Khan said he would never, bottom line, they wouldn't hire Hogan after those racist comments he made. So, salute and kudos to them. See, and the thing with Tony Khan is he doesn't have that second place mentality. He's focused on his company and doing the best that he can do with AEW and grow his company. You never see Tony Khan have an interview and bring up the WWE. The most you'll ever see is an edited video where he's just responding to what someone said, but he never brings up the WWE. And the only time you ever even hear him mention the WWE, and it's still always a question, but without directly saying anything about them, is when he'll say, well, growing up and I was watching WCW, ECW, WWE. Other than that, he doesn't have any negative things to say about them initially. But, if he's asked a question, it's usually because someone in the WWE is running their mouths about AEW, as usual, and he responds to the question that's being asked. But aside from that, no, he's not trying to clout chase and use their name to get attention. It's the other way around. But if you look at Eric Bischoff, he constantly talks down on AEW. Yet, you were in a position in TNA and in WCW where you had more success in WCW than you had in TNA. More real, you brought more value to that way. But when I listen to all of them, every single one of them have had people that they work with where Eric Bischoff's criticism is him allowing Hogan and Flair at one point to help ruin things, backstage. And Jim Cornette, basically he just been out of touch, man. This is why he can't do an interview without bringing up the Midnight Express. Because everything to him is how it was that year, or that time frame with the Midnight Express. And if you remember, the Midnight Express had multiple different people as the Midnight Express, But that was what he got more known for, was managing those two. That was to me his best work, even his involvement, like him falling from that scaffold and but like I said, these guys are much older now, man. So they don't bring much to the table. And who the fuck wants to see them coming out to the ring to lecture the younger wrestlers and talk about the way wrestling was meant to be? And nobody wants to hear Hogan talking about body slamming 700-pound Andre the Giant. And, what can you do with this company right here? Build it from scratch and take it forward. And like I was saying, if you don't have superstars, if you don't have, you have to have names that have some respect on it. Names that people can say, oh yeah, I know him. I used to love watching him too. Yeah. Otherwise, what stars would they have right now? Look at who's who. And not to mention, when wrestlers' contracts are up, who do you think is going to pick that company? If someone's leaving AEW over WWE. If someone's leaving WWE, who's going to pick them over AEW? Because for one, you got to show that you know what you're doing, and people want to feel comfortable because they go run into your company before, you get everything, get on your feet. Then they're taking a risk. So therefore, you'd have a bunch of people that the world doesn't know yet. But who are your veterans? So let's just say if they took somebody like Carlito, who WWE let go, is Carlito going to be like the top guy, or one of the very top guys? Who are you going to get? Like right now, let's say they took Carlito, if they was able to get a Braun Strowman, right? Let's just take some names that we don't know that people assign to anybody. Yeah, let's say they took a Braun Strowman, right? They went and got an EC3, a Tyrus, the only name right now that stands out to people that people would probably really show real respect to is Braun Strowman. EC3, if you remember him from his TNA days, yeah, but his WWE work was garbage. Tyrus is a thing of the past. His NWA work, nobody really cares about, and I don't know if people care about the Funkasaurus. Okay, Braun Strowman is more recent, so they would probably The crowd would probably, like he'd probably be their guy. That's who would probably be their guy. Now, the younger talent coming up and how they move these guys with that old school mentality. And then you got to look at the female side of things. Who are they going to get? You know, who are they going to care about? What type of characters are they going to sit back and create? And this is where things get cloudy, even trying to picture it, because these guys are so out of touch and outdated with how they see things. They just listening to them talk is like, yeah, they really think that it's even the terminology that they use, man, it's just like, nah, you guys just don't get it. Anybody with common sense knows it's not easy to run a wrestling company, and on top of that, become huge. And for them to show so much animosity to a company simply because they're basing everything on, well, the ratings should be this by now, or they should have this amount of people coming to this show. Bro, you know that one of the things about the WWE is, out of every company, the WWE is the only company that gets sympathy if they put on bad shows. The WWE is the only company that can put on a bad show, and then people will make excuses for it and still watch it and act like they're seeing something good. Then sometime later, they'll complain about it when they get mad enough. They know this. It's just like I said before, you're not going to create a new football league, and then get the same prestige as the NFL. You can't afford to. So if you have bad games or just things are going wrong with your company, the NFL, even if somebody, let's just say initially they're going, now this is good football. At some point, people are going, man, I only like the NFL. Same with the NBA, same with Major League Baseball, same with the NHL, anything. You guys know that. You know that. And this is where people don't understand. They purposely overlook this. And I'm saying, how could you be an Eric Bischoff or Paul Heyman or Jim Cornette or Hulk Hogan and not understand these things? So they know this shit, man. So, not to mention, when you had Bischoff and Hogan and WCW, that was a different thing. Yeah, wrestling followed Hogan over. They followed Macho Man over. Yeah, that was a different thing. When it came to TNA, yeah, their viewership increased. But still, they wasn't pulling 3.0 and 3 points. They wasn't there. So what did that show you? What was in the past, at one point stayed in the past. And mind you, when Hogan came, and you're talking about when the whole Monday Night War shit started with Hall and Nash and all of them, I mean, these guys, a bunch of older guys just standing around and ain't talking. Wasn't really much anything going on. They don't look the same anymore. They're flabby. The gray hairs all. I mean, it wasn't the same thing. So this was clearly a mindset of star power will get us ratings. Not necessarily. Jeff Hardy was still able to go at that time. Yeah, of course. Jeff's still doing his thing, but Jeff is, man, if you watch him in TNA, you see, man, he's, wear and tear on his body. Rob Van Dam, they had different people, but those were really the guys that they focused on, was those two. And, when you have left the WWE and leaving WWE, when you were there, you wasn't the top guy, you were a mid-carder, but you come to another company and become the top guy. It's not the same, man. This is why you have to know how to recreate characters, and the ability has to be there. So this is exactly why when you see guys like that in a position and you go, now you took AJ Styles, you took Christopher Daniels, you took Frankie Kazarian, you took Samoa Joe, you took all these guys and gave them a backseat to the Hardys, Rob Van Dam, X-Pac, and all these guys that had wound up coming there. And what did they do? Because you took your homegrown talent. And these are the people that will be in the ring wrestling, and your commentary is saying, I dare anyone to find this kind of action anywhere in the world. We are the best at professional wrestling, but then these guys come in, and your guys take a back seat. See, it all, they don't understand balance. And this is where, it's like, if any of you ever box or go to a gym and box and do anything, you'll notice like these really old school trainers, they only know how to train you one fucking way. One way only, right? You need that versatility. It's not that you abandon the old school trainer, but sometimes you need somebody else in camp with you so these trainers can learn and from each other and they can mesh together and see this is what we're building with these fighters. Because old school, no, we don't need that. No. They only know how to train you one way. I literally remember there was a guy in the gym training the guy, and he was telling him, now when you put your hands up, he was literally, nobody fights like this. But this, you put your hands up, and you took your chin, right? And everything he was doing, it's like if you watched a Rocky Marciano, a Joe Louis, how they fought back then, and the stance is different. If you watch that's what he was used to seeing. That's what he was used to being a part of. And I remember like when that happened, I'm going, nah, this guy, yeah, and that can be a problem. So, how do you take wrestlers like? How would they work with guys, that's high flyers? How would they work with the really big guys? How would they put this all together? These are the type of things that I'm thinking about because, even like Booker T made a comment about how it is difficult for a guy like to work like write stories for somebody like Omos and different guys, and that's why I said, yeah, it shows you a lack of skill and a lack of creativity because how the hell do you think they work with Andre the Giant and King Kong Bundy and Big Show and all those guys and Haystacks Calhoun and Kamala and all these guys? How? And if you can't, right? And I feel like it's like when people. When Disney involved themselves in whatever Marvel's doing, and they write the Hulk as Professor Hulk. Let's make him as weak as we possibly can, so people have a chance to beat the Hulk. Let's not give him Hulk's full capabilities. And it's like, man, just because he's in a movie, but you got him sitting here scared to fight Thanos or acting like all of this, like, right? And look at how Marvel, everything was about Marvel. Now it's the type of thing where people are waiting to see Marvel come back to, and I'm not trying to be funny, but let's just be real, man. Now, like when I was watching the Eternals, everything with these gay characters, with these soft characters, with these little like sissy, like little, like what happened? Let's look at Marvel. Let's look at everything from the first Iron Man, the Spider-Man movies, and all that, and the Thor, and look at the kick-ass shit that they were doing. And then just little by little, once Disney got involved, you just saw everything change. It starts to change, and then it's like, all the comedies, all the funny stuff. Well, this is, we make it for the okay, yeah, but goddamn it, like, come on, man, we're not kids, we're not children, man, but at the same time, this is what I'm saying. You have to know how to change with the times and how to bring certain things back and how to balance things out. I just don't see the four of them knowing how to do that. I really don't. And like I said, with everybody that you think is such a great mind in this business, you come to find out there was always a team of them putting shit together. It's like, this is a system that people use. And a lot of times, other people involved don't get credit for being a part of whatever that thing was that they were doing so well. But, it's like when you hear Vince Russo talk, and Vince Russo talks about him being responsible for Taker and for Gold Dust characters and for this person, that, right? But then this is what I'm saying. So why, when you went to WCW, what happened? And then he'll blame this guy and that guy, Eric Bischoff, and him will blame each other, and but it's like, this is my point. If you can't put your differences aside and work together, you can't just fuck the bullshit. I respect where you're coming from. Hey, I respect where you're coming. Let's make this work. Yeah, I just would see this as a failed attempt for people who have legendary names in this business, one way or another, that are past their prime. I mean, it will be like no different. Imagine Smokey Robinson, Lionel Richie, Aretha Franklin and fucking, Phil Collins all get together and start writing songs for people right now at their ages. You think a fucking 85-year-old man is going to sit here and write about love and sex and some good fucking and all that shit? I'm just saying, like, do you really think they're going to be able to put something together right now and write something in a way where It just hits everybody. And how are they going to sing it? Is it going to sound just like when they were fucking singing in the 70s and 80s? Because they don't have that in them. They don't have that. It's not in them. You know, it was so funny because even saying this shit, right? I know Sheila E. was a great drummer, right? I watched the video where she was talking about, I think it's the Michael Jackson Don't Stop Till You Get Enough song, where how they wanted her to come and play her drums. But she said that there was a particular sound that Michael Jackson wanted. And she said she didn't have anything to really create that sound. And he's like, you know, Michael's one of those guys. I learned that from him. Like, you know, sound thing. Well, I didn't really learn it from him. I found out later that he did that same thing. I didn't learn that from anybody. It's just something I did when I would make music because I didn't want to sample anything. I didn't want that, so I would just create a beat. I would create how I wanted. If it was a guitar or whatever the instrument would be, or just like I would create everything and put it together. And whoever was doing my tracks could sit there and they would just emulate all of that shit. And so I was creating my own tracks. And then I came to find out later, you know, that you know, Michael Jackson was doing that. You know, then you saw Michael Jackson, how he would just mouth things out, and then people would. So Sheila E. said the sound he wanted, what they did was she took like glasses, like wine glasses, and filled them up with water, and then she took like a spoon and was like tapping it to make the sound that he wanted. So that's that little sound that you hear that sound like a little, almost like a little bell. That's her doing that. And then it was funny because when it comes to Sheila E., Holly Rock is probably, that was like my energy song. I would always throw Holly Rock on it because it's just like the energy, glamorous life, always like that. So as a kid listening to her and then growing up to like, okay, Love Bizarre. Man, I hadn't heard music from Sheila E. in so long that it was weird. And then I saw it was a song she made called Lemon Cake. And I said, damn, this sounds like something Erykah Badu. She kind of had that Erykah Badu type of vibe, right? And I'm sitting here saying to myself, like, you know, when the hell did she make this? You understand what I'm saying? And so my whole point with that is when I listen to her, she sound different. It was a different sound for her because it was a Erykah Badu type sound. And if you listen to Sheila E., you know she's never sound like Erykah Badu. But by the time she was sounding like Erykah Badu's sound was old. You see what I'm saying? So she adopted a new old style. And that's where I would see things going between guys like that. And I look at who's out here now, man. It's like, people are quick to want to, they're like, what if Turkey Al-Sheikh gets involved? I don't care who gets involved. Wrestling knowledge and just having money. Same like how he funds boxing, man. But this guy, he puts good cards together, but he gets involved too much. I don't respect the fact that Turkey Al-Sheikh, for example, he's a dictator, man. And I don't like, it's like he acts like the fighters are fighting for him. I don't think that that's cool. The fighter you want to see win. You're walking over to that fighter's corner. Hey, come on, I need you to step it up. I need you to win these 2 rounds. You're down on the official scorecards. Who does that, man? Who does that? Even the fucking cornerman, is telling, as far as they tell their fighters on the official, on the unofficial scorecards, this guy's telling them what's happening. He doesn't mind showing favoritism. Now he's talking this no running rule in boxing. Like, bro, what the fuck do you mean no running? Like, like you want to limit these fighters to fight in one type of way. You're gonna damage the sport by trying to get involved too much, man. And here's my thing: you're not a fighter. You've never been a fighter. You probably never even been punched in the face before, so you don't even know what a fighter goes through. But because you have the money, so what? So this is why I said, even if somebody was to fund them, put the money up, okay, they still have to go out and find the talent. And in today's wrestling versus what they're used to, it's different. So you're going to try to groom them into what? Being sports entertainers or professional wrestlers. So that's my take on that with these guys. I really don't think that they would make it. I don't. For that matter, let's look at what TNA has going on. Turkey Ali Sheik could say, hey man, you guys have had involvement with WWE. Let's have some meetings. Let's, what do you guys feel you could do? If I was to give you the money that you need, I want a wrestling show. And I feel like you guys, you're here, there are people that know of you, but what do you guys feel like you need? And you'd be on that next level to be top major players. He could even do that. And if he hasn't done that with a company that's already established, I don't think he's just going to take his money, or anybody else for that matter, and just say, let's take 4 old fucking guys and just throw some money, give them some money and tell them to go out and make something happen. No, we need to know that our investment, we're going to turn profit. They don't want to give you something just to break even. No. And there's no guarantee of how many people's going to tune in, But people always think that there's always somebody that has some master plan. Listen to all these people that come in comment sections talking about what a wrestling show needs and what it has to do and what it this and this, as if they're writing scripts on their own. They're just piggybacking off of what was said and done. But we all can give our opinions. Hell, we all been watching this shit long enough that we could sit here and write some better shit than what we're getting. Yeah, I feel like a lot of us could do that. But what I'm saying is, when you're putting things together, you're dealing with contracts expiring, disloyal motherfuckers who you rolled out the red carpet for that you think is going to re-sign, then they go run off, or whatever may happen, injuries happen, people get some type of, hey, man, I was offered a movie deal, my agent went out and we got the part, and we, whatever, it's a lot that goes on, man. There's just a lot that goes on, so it's more than just one thing. So with all these guys being around, and like I said, the fact that none of them ever thought to put their differences aside and come together and make something special, it just shows me too, like, yeah, everything's personal with these guys, man, and that going forward, they're stuck in the past. And that's my take on these guys. That's all I got for you guys now. Catch you guys on the next video.